Hello and welcome to Challenge Your Mind, Change the World, the podcast where we dive deep into the art of communication and critical thinking, and how these essential skills can transform our relationships and our futures with our teens. I'm your host, Francesca Hudson, the classic high school teacher, a writer, entrepreneur, and an advocate for meaningful conversations. Each episode, I explore strategies and share insights on how parents can enhance their communication with their children. It's not just about talking, it's about listening, understanding, and fostering an environment where critical thinking thrives. I'm here to equip you with the tools not only for immediate improvements in your family interactions, but also to set up our teens for long-term success in every aspect of their lives. So whether you're on your morning commute or winding down for the evening, join me as we unlock the potential of our conversations to shape a brighter, more thoughtful world. Let's get started. Welcome back to the podcast. Francesca here from the Classic High School Teacher. Today, we're talking about something that causes so much confusion and frustration for parents, and honestly, for teens as well. Let me paint you a little scenario and tell me if you think that this sounds very similar to what goes on at home. You read your teenager's work and think, that's a good answer. They clearly understand the question. Why on earth did this lose marks? And the feedback might say things like too descriptive, lacks analysis, needs to go deeper, more explanation required, which, to be honest, isn't exactly helpful if you're not a teacher. So today I want to unpack why answers that look really good still lose marks, what teachers and examiners are actually looking for, and most importantly, what you can do at home to support your teen without nagging, reteaching the curriculum, or turning evenings into a war zone, because we don't want that. This isn't about your teen being careless, and it's definitely not about them being not academic enough, and I say that in inverted commas. It's about a missing thinking step that most students are never explicitly taught. So today I'm going to teach you what that is. This is especially important for any parents out there that are supporting their teenagers through the exam study period at the moment. They might be doing lots of practice exam essays in class, and you're wanting to help them at home, but you just don't understand what the feedback means from the teacher. So let's get started. First of all, let's look at the "it looks right" trap, I call it. And it's the biggest misconception that I see as a teacher. Parents at home assume marking is about correctness. But secondary school, and especially from middle school onwards, it's actually about thinking, not just knowing. Primary school, the focus might be on correcting spelling and grammar and sentence structure. But from high school onwards, the focus, especially in subjects like English, it's very much more about the thinking. So your teen might explain the quote accurately, they might retell the scene perfectly, they might use impressive vocab, and they might stay completely on topic and still lose marks. Why? Why is this, you ask me? Well, because a good answer and a high-scoring answer are not the same thing. Let me give you a simple example. If the question asks, how does the author show tension in this scene? A good answer might describe what happens. It might explain how the characters feel. It might summarize the moment accurately, right? So it looks good, but a high-scoring answer does something extra. This is what we're looking for as teachers and examiners, the extra. A high-scoring answer shows why the author chose those techniques, how the language creates a specific effect, and what the tension makes the reader understand. So it's the same text, the same understanding, but it's just showing a different level of thinking. And here's the most important bit for parents to hear. Most teens are not aware there is another level, right? That's really important. They don't even realize there is another level. They think, I answered the question, why isn't that enough? So let me give you the 3 main reasons good answers lose marks, and then I'm going to tell you what you can do to fix this. So the 3 main reasons that I see every single week. The first one is retelling instead of analysing. This is huge. This is huge. And most students in my classes would start off retelling the story instead of analysing it. And we would spend so much time in class getting them past just these plot summaries of the book. So teens often believe if I show I know what happened, I'll get the marks, right? So they retell the scene beautifully. But examiners are thinking, yeah, that's fine, but what does that prove? Think about it this way. Retelling means what happened. Analysis, this is the word that we want. This is the word that examiners are looking for. Analysis is writing why it matters. This is the thinking shift. It's not a writing problem. Your teenager can write perfectly fine. It's a thinking skill. So the second reason why good answers lose marks that I see is explaining the quote instead of using it in their essay. This is another very common issue. Your teen might write, this quote means the character is sad because they feel lonely, which is true, but it stops there. High-scoring answers will go further. They will say why that word choice. Why did the author use those particular words? Why that image? Why that moment in the text? The quote isn't there to be explained. It's there to be used as evidence for a bigger idea. It comes back to that word why. Why? And the third reason good answers lose marks is that teenagers tend to answer the question literally, not strategically. And this one surprises parents. Teens often answer exactly what the question says, but not what it's really asking. For example, they repeat the question wording, they stay very safe, they avoid making a claim because they think school is about getting the right answer. They're looking for what's right and what's wrong, and they want to write down the right answer. However, markers, examiners, teachers, we all reward interpretation. How does your teenager interpret the text to bring their own opinions into their writing? So how does your teen interpret the text? What insight can they bring to their answers? What other parts of the book do they think might have influenced this particular claim? So they're bringing insight into their answers. And they are showing decision-making. They're not just robotically, generically retelling the story, but they're actually making decisions on what they've read. So it's all about being able to bring your own interpretations to your writing, not just coming up with compliance of what you think is the right answer. Now, this isn't your teen's fault if your teen has been making 1 or 2 or 3 or other mistakes in class that sound similar to these. And this is where I really want you to breathe for a second. Most teens are never explicitly taught what analysis actually looks like. They're never taught how to move beyond just an explanation or a plot summary of the book. And they're never explicitly taught how to show thinking, not just knowledge. They're told to go deeper, right? That's the red pen feedback comment on their essay, but not how. So what happens? They try harder, they write more, they use fancier words, they use bigger examples from the book, and then they're still losing marks, which is why confidence drops so quickly at this stage. They start to believe, I'm just not good at this subject, when in reality, they're missing a framework, not ability. This isn't about ability, it's about the missing framework link. So I'm going to show you what you can do at home to support your teenager, if they're going through this phase of writing essays and getting feedback and not understanding what the feedback means. And this is going to help you without having to become a teacher, because it's the last thing I want you to feel like you've got to do is reteach the subject when they get home. So here's the good news. You don't need to know the text. You do not need to understand the curriculum, and you do not need to correct your teen's work, right? But what you can do is help them shift how they think, how your teen thinks. And we do this in 3 ways. So the first way is to ask better questions. So instead of saying, okay, well, maybe you've just got to add more detail to this paragraph, or maybe you just need to explain this part better. The teacher's obviously wanting you to explain this better, or you need to go deeper. How about using questions like, okay, what are you trying to prove here? What are you trying to prove with this paragraph or with this idea that you're talking about? Or you could say, what does this show about the character, theme, or author? What does this show about the character or the theme or the author? You could say that to your teen when you're reading through their essay and go, okay, well, what does this show about the character? Or what does this show about the theme? What's the theme of the book? Okay, so what does this paragraph show about the theme? Or you could say, why did the author do it this way and not another way? So we could look at the author's background. What influences from the author's own background are coming into the book? And have you mentioned any of these in your response? Because these types of questions that I've just told you train analysis without you teaching content. That's the first thing you could do at home, is ask better questions. The second thing you could do to support your teen is look for the missing sentence. Now, what I mean by this is high-scoring answers almost always include a sentence that starts with, this shows that, ... or this suggests that, ... or this highlights how, ... Can you see the pattern here? So if your teen has quotes and explanation, but no idea sentence, that's often the gap. They need to have a sentence in their paragraph that starts, this shows that, and then their answer. Okay, I'll put all these in the show notes, so you'll have all of these to refer to. But this missing sentence can often raise their marks just by putting it in. This shows that. This suggests that. This highlights how. They have to have a sentence like that. If they haven't got something like this in their paragraph, then they are not going into that analysis level of thinking. And the third thing that you can do at home is separate effort from strategy. So one of the most powerful things you can say as a parent at home wanting to support your teen is, this isn't about trying harder, it's about knowing what the marker is looking for. All right, we can write, it's not about you've written 2 pages for your first essay, you go back and you write 5 pages for your next essay and you think that's going to get better marks because it's longer. It's not about that. It's not about trying harder. It's about knowing what the marker is looking for. That single sentence removes shame and replaces it with problem solving. So here's the mind shift that I want you to walk away with today. Your teen doesn't need more writing, more homework time, more pressure, especially when it comes time for exam preparation or tests at school. What they do need is clear thinking steps, permission to interpret, and tools that show them how to think on the page. When that clicks, you will see that their marks will improve dramatically, but more importantly, confidence does too. Why? Because they stop guessing and they start deciding. So if this episode made you think, oh, that explains so much, you're not alone. And that's exactly why I create Thinking First tools for teens and parents, resources that don't replace school, but make school make much more sense. So if you'd like support with analysis, structured thinking, turning good ideas into high-scoring ones, then I think I've got 2 toolkits in particular that would be absolutely brilliant for your teen. The first one is called Read and Respond, and that is all about how to understand the literary analysis of a text, how to go deeper, what the author's intent means. What does that word analyze mean? We go into it in a really, really clear, straightforward, scaffolded, simple step way, and that is through read and respond. The other toolkit, which I think would be hugely beneficial for your teen, is the essay clinic. And that really shows your teen how to structure a literary essay in a way that markers and examiners are looking for. It shows how to include your analysis as part of your response, so you're not just writing plot summaries. And it's a really, really great foundational course that your teenager will refer to time and time again as they go through high school. So I will link those two toolkits in the notes. That's Read and Respond and the Essay Clinic. As always, you are doing a wonderful job supporting your teen, even when it feels confusing. Thank you for joining me today and spending some of that very, very precious time with me. I will talk to you again next time. Bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Challenge Your Mind, Change the World. I hope you found our discussion enriching and that you're walking away with new ideas to enhance communication and critical thinking within your own family. If you enjoyed this episode and are finding value in our conversations, please take a moment to rate us on your favourite podcast platform. Your feedback not only supports us, but also helps other parents discover the tools they need to foster stronger relationships and critical thinking skills with their teens. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and share this with someone who you think could benefit from our today's topic. I'm Francesca Hudson, and I look forward to joining you again next time as we continue to challenge our minds and change the world. Until then, keep thinking critically and communicating effectively.